Sir Criston Cole was a knight from House Cole, a minor house from the Dornish marches in the Stormlands. He would rise from nothing to become Lord Commander of the Kingsguard for King Viserys I Targaryen, and would later gain the title of Kingmaker for his role in convincing King Aegon II to claim his father's throne at the onset of the Dance of the Dragons. He would later also serve as Hand of the King for Aegon II after Otto Hightower was removed from the position. Criston had black hair and pale green eyes, with many ladies describing him as charming. He was also an exceptionally skilled warrior, particularly with the Morning Star, with his skill at arms being held among the best the Kingsguard and most knights ever saw. Criston Cole was born in 82 AC, but little was known about Criston's early life, apart from the fact that he was born to a steward of Lord Dondarrion at Blackhaven in the Dornish marches. His first notable appearance in the history books comes in 104 AC, when Criston won a melee at the tourney at Maidenpool to celebrate the ascension of King Viserys I Targaryen to the Iron Throne. His performance in the tourney drew the attention of the royal court, as he managed to knock Dark Sister from the hands of Prince Daemon Targaryen with his Morning Star. Given the known prowess of the prince, this stunned all at the tourney. He gave the victor's laurel to the 7-year-old Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen, whose favour he would go on to wear when he unhorsed Daemon in a joust, as well as the twins Sir Aric and Sir Eric Cargill of the Kingsguard, before being unhorsed by Lord Lyman Mallister. Thereafter, King Viserys indulged his young daughter Rhaenyra by naming Criston her personal sworn sword. Later, in 105 AC, the now 23-year-old Criston became a member of the Kingsguard, taking the place of the legendary Sir Ryan Redwyne. However, he would still act as the sworn shield of the princess. Criston continued to wear Rhaenyra's favour in tournaments. In 111 AC, he unhorsed Sir Gawain Hightower, younger brother and champion to King Viserys' second wife and queen, Alicent Hightower. Half a year later, Daemon departed the capital after quarrelling with his royal brother. When Sir Harold Westerling, Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, died in 112 AC, Criston was named his successor to lead the White Cloaks. By 113 AC, King Viserys I Targaryen had arranged for his reluctant daughter Rhaenyra to wed Sir Laenor Velaryon of Driftmark, the son of Corlys Velaryon and Princess Rhaenys Targaryen. According to Septon Eustace's account of the events, Criston is said to have slipped into Rhaenyra's bedchamber to confess his love, offering to run away with her to one of the free cities in Essos, where he would pledge his sword to some merchant prince or a sellsword company. Rhaenyra refused him, saying a Targaryen was meant to be more than a wife of a sellsword, and that if he could forget and forsake his Kingsguard vows, he could easily do the same to his marriage vows. However, according to the Mushroom, the court fool's testimony of events, it was in fact Rhaenyra who unsuccessfully attempted to seduce Sir Criston in the White Sword Tower. When spurned, the princess took solace in Sir Harwin Strong as a result. Whatever the way of it, Criston went from being her staunchest and most loyal defender to her most bitter foe. Soon after, Rhaenyra left for Driftmark for her wedding, with Harwin as her new sworn shield. In 114 AC, Sir Criston would attend the wedding of Rhaenyra to Laenor, which included 7 days of feasting and jousting. Being a knight, he chose to fight in the wedding tourney, but to the shock of all at the festivities, the former sworn shield of the princess now fought with Queen Alicent Hightower's token. During the melee, he left Harwin, Rhaenyra's reported lover, with a broken collarbone and a shattered elbow. Criston's Morning Star also cracked the helm of Laenor's favourite and rumoured lover, Sir Joffrey Longmouth, with the Knight of Kisses dying 6 days later from his injuries. While many were angered at Criston for doing this, including King Viserys himself, Queen Alicent did not share their displeasure and asked that he be made her personal sworn shield. Criston then became a staunch supporter of Alicent and a member of the Greens. However, it should be fair to point out that even in tourneys, which are mostly for sport, there is always a risk of injury and death, a risk Longmouth willingly accepted. It can be argued that Cole intentionally set out to harm those close to Rhaenyra during this tourney. However, death and injuries such as these are not uncommon in these kind of events. Now a part of the Green faction and the sworn shield of the Queen, Cole grew very close to her and her two eldest sons, Aegon and Aemon, training both in martial pursuits. It is said that he molded Aemon into a fierce and dangerous fighter despite the loss of one of his eyes when he was a child, with even the more relaxed and sometimes lazy Aegon becoming a decent swordsman as a result of Cole's tutelage. When King Viserys I Targaryen died in 129 AC, causing the breakout of the Dance of Dragons, Criston and Queen Alicent Hightower assembled the small council to discuss the matter of succession, keeping the king's death a secret from the public for several days. It is noted that Criston objected to Rhaenyra, who was the Princess of Dragonstone, or her husband, Prince Daemon, holding any form of power, and he was also one of the many that repeated the rumours that Rhaenyra's first 3 children from Sir Laenor Velaryon were in fact bastards, with Harwin Strong reportedly being the boy's true father, sharing his common look. Instead of Rhaenyra, Viserys' named heir, the Greens wanted to crown her younger half-brother, Prince Aegon, Viserys' eldest son. According to Septon Eustace, Lord Lyman Beesbury was one of the only members of the Green Council who dissented and spoke in favour of Rhaenyra. Some accounts claim that Criston cut the throat of Lord Beesbury, while Mushroom claims that Criston instead flung Lyman to his death from a window. However, it must be noted neither Eustace or Mushroom were present at the meeting, so the truth of the matter will likely never be known, other than that Beesbury died in the council chambers. Any supporters of Rhaenyra who remained at court were taken by Criston into custody and placed in the black cells, to the point they were overflowing. When it came time for the Greens to make their move, Aegon was nowhere to be found. Thus Cole ventured into the streets of King's Landing to find the prince to convince him to ascend the Iron Throne. Mushroom wrote that Criston found him with a young girl in Flea Bottom, while Eustace claims that Aegon was in fact in a more respectable situation with the daughter of a trader. Both accounts suggest that the prince had been drinking heavily. According to the Septon, Criston told the prince that he and his siblings, and even his own children, would be killed by Rhaenyra if he did not claim the Iron Throne. No matter what Cole said to the prince, it did indeed work, and Aegon claimed his father's throne. Cole would forever now be known, in the pages of history, and to the small folk, as the Kingmaker, for the role he played in the rise of King Aegon II. During Aegon's coronation in the Dragon Pit, it was Sir Criston who placed the crown of Aegon the Conqueror on the young king's head. Rhaenyra Targaryen was at Dragonstone at the time of Aegon II's coronation. She refused to support her half-brother's claim to the throne, thus officially beginning the conflict which engulfed the Seven Kingdoms and became known as the Dance of the Dragons, and caused irreparable damage to House Targaryen. Many of the lords of the Seven Kingdoms were aware of Viserys Targaryen's wish to have Rhaenyra succeed him as House Targaryen's first ruling queen, with many having sworn oaths to such effect when she was first named his heir. Thus, many of these lords threw their support behind the princess. As the Blacks gathered their force and allies, Aegon II became frustrated with Sir Otto Hightower, his grandfather and Hand of the King, and instead awarded the office to Criston. In a response to Blood and Cheese having killed the young Prince Jaehaerys Targaryen, the eldest son of Aegon, at the order of Prince Daemon, as retaliation for Aemon killing Rhaenyra's son Lucerys, the new hand ordered a reluctant Sir Eric Cargill of the Kingsguard to infiltrate Dragonstone in the guise of his twin, Sir Eric Cargill, who was supporting Rhaenyra's claim. Grand Maester Munkin believed that Criston wanted Eric to assassinate Rhaenyra, ending the war with as little blood spilt as possible, while the full Mushroom writes that Sir Eric was supposed to kill Rhaenyra's sons, Jaehaerys Velaryon and Joffrey Velaryon, with some suggesting that these targets were part of a personal vendetta against the apparent bastards of Harwin Strong. Criston's schemes faltered, however, when Eric and Eric came face to face and the twins killed each other in single combat. After the failed assassination plot, Criston marched his army on Rosby and Stokeworth and forced their levies to join his host of Green supporters. He then led the sack of Duskendale. Cole prepared for the arrival of Princess Rhaenys Targaryen and Meleys at the Battle of Rook's Rest, having planned for King Aegon II on Sunfire and Prince Aemon on Vhagar to wait in ambush with himself as a lure for the queen who never was. Rhaenys and Meleys were killed in the fighting, and Aegon was left badly injured as well. Aemon and Criston killed the garrison of Rook's Rest and carried the head of Lord Staunton back to King's Landing, as well as the body of the dragon, Meleys. parading it through the streets. With King Aegon II recovering from his injuries, Aemon acted as protector of the realm and Prince Regent, effectively giving him the power of the king in his brother's stead. Aemon kept his close friend and mentor, Criston, as hand. Prince Aemon and Criston decided to retake Harrenhal from Prince Daemon, the husband and consort of Queen Rhaenyra Targaryen, whom had taken the ruins in the first days of the war in the name of Rhaenyra. Daemon was using the ruins as a rallying point for the forces of the Riverlands, who supported the Blacks' cause. Meanwhile, Lord Jason Lannister, who supported the Greens, marched towards the God's Eye with a host of Westermen in support of King Aegon Targaryen. Criston, meanwhile, departed King's Landing with another 4,000 Greens, and Aemon on Vhagar. But things did not go to plan, as Lord Jason was killed in battle at the Red Fork, and his Westermen struggled under Lord Humphrey Lefford during the rest of the march to Harrenhal with many foes in their way. After defeating Sir Oswald Woade and Lord Darien Root by the shores of the God's Eye, Criston's host found Harrenhal to have been abandoned by the Blacks when they finally arrived at the castle. Aemon saw it as a great victory, but he was outraged upon learning that Daemon had flown away on Caraxes to aid Rhaenyra with the fall of King's Landing. Meanwhile, the Westerman forces, led by Humphrey Lefford, were shattered in the battle by the lakeshore by the Rivermen and the Winter Wolves from the north. In response to the Blacks' victory, Criston urged Aemon to retreat south and join the host of Greens led by Aemond Hightower and Prince Daeron Targaryen. However, Aemon refused and decided to instead burn the Riverlands with Vhagar's Dragonflame. Criston marched south from Harrenhal with his remaining host of 3,600 Greens to meet the Hightower host, without the prince, travelling along the western shore of the God's Eye. The Blacks destroyed villages and befouled waters on his line of march, denying supplies to the Greens. Rivermen such as the young Lord Benjicott Blackwood harried Criston's host as they marched south, and a dozen Greens were killed at Crossed Elms in an ambush that made use of the corpses of the fallen Green soldiers from the Battle of the Lakeshore, placed in a grotesque mock feast to serve as a distraction. While marching from the God's Eye to the Blackwater Rush, Criston's surviving hosts were met at a ridge by an army of thousands of Blacks, led by Sir Garibald Grey, Sir Pate of Longleaf, and Roderick Dustin, Lord of Barrington. Criston offered to yield if the Blacks would spare the lives of his men, but he was refused. Criston then challenged all three of his counterparts to single combat, rather than waste the lives of their men. Pate had Red Rob Rivers and his archers strike down the Kingmaker, Sir Criston, with 3 arrows, with Cole dying almost instantly from his wounds. While the manner of Criston Cole's death did spare the lives of hundreds of men of the Blacks, hundreds of Criston's men were killed by the Rivermen and the Winter Wolves in the ensuing battle that became known as the Butcher's Ball. Some, to this day, question if the manner of his death at the hands of the archers was dishonourable, considering the circumstances of the meeting between the lords and the knight. It is said that Garibald and Pate brought Criston's head on a spear to the First Battle of Templeton later in the war, again causing some historians to question the honour of these so-called heroes of the Blacks. Though through his actions, Sir Criston Cole earned his place in the history of Westeros, be it for good or ill. Criston's motives in supporting Aegon II in the Dance of the Dragons are unclear to say the least, and really depends on the sources of information you believe. Some say that he acted for ambition and power for himself, as Aegon was more controllable than his willful half-sister, Rhaenyra, and that Rhaenyra's spurning of him added a personal dimension to the conflict. Others allow Criston more nobler motives and claimed he was defending the ancient Andal custom that put sons over daughters in matters of succession, or that he did not wish to see Rhaenyra's children, who were believed to be strong bastards, Jace, Luke, and Joffrey Velaryon, to inherit the Iron Throne. But no matter what you believe the motives of Sir Criston Cole to be, no matter if you agree with his actions or not, Sir Criston is remembered as one of the most formidable warriors of his age, among the most legendary of the Kingsguard, and as a man who ultimately embodies some of the best and worst aspects of knighthood and the Kingsguard.